Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. If you are learning English, you're in the right place. On this channel, we learn English through simple stories. Don't worry if your English is not perfect, it is just like any other language. With patience, practice, and consistency, you can learn it step by step. So relax, listen carefully, and enjoy the story. I am 38 years old now, and during my life, I have met many talented people. Some were brilliant from childhood, while others seemed destined for success from a very young age. But there was one girl whose story stayed with me more than anyone else's. Not because she was extraordinary from the beginning, but because nobody believed she would become extraordinary. Her name was Hana. She lived in a small village surrounded by green fields, rivers, and quiet roads. It was a peaceful place where everyone knew each other and where news traveled quickly from one house to another. Hana was known as a cheerful and carefree girl. She loved spending time outdoors, talking with friends, walking near the river, and watching birds fly across the sky. However, she disliked studying. She rarely completed her homework and often spent more time daydreaming than paying attention in class. Teachers became frustrated with her. Neighbors shook their heads whenever they saw her wandering around while other students attended tuition classes. Many parents even used her name as a warning for their own children. Study hard, they would say. Otherwise, you'll become like Hana. At first, Hana pretended that these comments did not affect her. She smiled, she laughed, she acted as if she did not care. But deep inside, those words slowly became part of her identity. After hearing for years that she was lazy, incapable, and unlikely to succeed, she eventually began to believe those things herself. She stopped trying, she stopped dreaming, and she accepted the idea that perhaps she was simply an ordinary girl with an ordinary future. But everything changed one summer. A group of university students visited the village to organize an educational exhibition. They brought books, science projects, maps, telescopes, and displays about famous inventors and leaders from around the world. Most young people attended out of curiosity. Hana joined them only because her friends insisted. As she walked through the exhibition, she noticed an elderly professor speaking to a group of students. He smiled and said, "Talent is not rare. What is rare is discovering your own talent." Those words stayed in Hana's mind. For the first time in years, she asked herself a simple question. What if everyone is wrong about me? That night, she could not sleep. She kept thinking about the professor's words. Perhaps she had spent too much time listening to others. Perhaps she had never truly discovered what she was capable of. In the village lived a retired teacher named Professor Hamid. For more than 40 years, he had taught mathematics and science and had helped hundreds of students gain admission to prestigious universities. People respected him greatly. Even after retirement, many families visited him seeking advice. One afternoon, Hana gathered enough courage and knocked on his door. She asked him to teach her. Professor Hamid looked surprised. Over the years, he had heard many stories about Hana. None of them were encouraging. People described her as lazy, distracted, and uninterested in learning. He honestly believed she would lose interest within a few weeks. "I do not think this is the right path for you," he said kindly. "Studying requires patience and discipline." But Hana refused to give up, and she returned the next day, and then again the following day. After seeing her determination, Professor Hamid finally agreed. However, he kept his expectations low. During the first lessons, he taught basic concepts and simple exercises. He expected her enthusiasm to disappear very quickly. Then something unexpected happened. One afternoon, Hana arrived earlier than usual. Professor Hamid was sitting alone, playing chess. Surprised by her arrival, he accidentally knocked over the chessboard and the pieces scattered across the floor. Without hesitation, Hana bent down and placed every piece back exactly where it had been before. Professor Hamid stared at the board in disbelief. "Did you memorize the positions?" he asked. Hana nodded. Curious, he rearranged the pieces and asked her to observe carefully. A few minutes later, he cleared the board and asked her to recreate it. She placed every piece correctly again and again. She never made a mistake. At that moment, Professor Hamid realized something. Hana possessed an extraordinary memory. She was not unintelligent. She had simply spent years without anyone helping her discover her strengths. From that day onward, Professor Hamid changed his approach completely. He designed lessons that matched her learning style. Instead of asking her to memorize formulas, he encouraged her to understand ideas through patterns and visualization. For the first time in her life, Hana felt excited about learning. Months passed, then years. She developed a routine. She woke up early every morning, studied before breakfast, and attended lessons in the afternoon. At night, while others slept, she continued reading books and solving problems. People in the village slowly noticed the change. The same girl who had once avoided books now carried notebooks everywhere she went. Her confidence began to grow. Professor Hamid introduced her to the idea of applying to one of the country's most prestigious universities. It was famous for its competitive entrance examination. Thousands of students applied every year. Only a small number received admission. At first, Hana laughed. She believed it was impossible. Students from wealthy families and elite schools prepared for years to enter that university. How could a village girl compete with them? Professor Hamid smiled. "You do not have to compete with others," he told her. "You only need to become a better version of yourself every day." Those words became her motivation. The preparation was difficult, and there were moments when Hana wanted to quit. She sometimes scored poorly on practice tests. She struggled with advanced topics. There were days when she cried from exhaustion. But every setback taught her patience, and every small improvement reminded her that progress takes time. Finally, the examination day arrived. Hana traveled to the city for the first time. She entered a large examination hall filled with students who looked confident and well-prepared. For a moment she felt afraid. She wondered whether she belonged there. But then she remembered Professor Hamid's words, and then she took a deep breath and began writing. Several months later, the results were announced. Hana had passed. She had earned admission to one of the best universities in the country. The village celebrated. Neighbors who once criticized her congratulated her family. Teachers who had doubted her smiled proudly. But Professor Hamid remained calm, because he believed Hana's greatest achievement was not entering university. It was learning to believe in her God-given abilities. University life was exciting, but challenging. Students came from large cities. Many had attended prestigious schools. They spoke confidently, participated in discussions, and seemed much more knowledgeable. Hana felt out of place. She struggled during her first semester. She hesitated to ask questions in class. She worried that people would discover she came from a small village. Sometimes she ate alone in the cafeteria. Sometimes she missed home. And sometimes she wondered whether she had made a mistake. One evening, after receiving disappointing grades, she packed her belongings and decided to return home. She believed she was not good enough. Before leaving, she called Professor Hamid. He listened quietly and asked, "Why did you begin this journey?" Hana remained silent. She had never thought deeply about that question. Professor Hamid then continued, "Education is not simply about earning good grades. It is not about proving people wrong. It is about growing into someone who can improve the lives of others. You discovered your own potential because someone believed in you. One day, you may become the reason another person believes in themselves." Those words changed everything. For the first time, Hana understood that education had a larger purpose. She returned to university with a new mindset. She no longer studied because she wanted recognition. She studied because she loved learning. She wanted to contribute and help people. Slowly, things improved. She participated in competitions, joined academic clubs, and made new friends. Professors noticed her dedication. 1 year later, she represented her university in a national competition. Students from across the country competed against one another. Many participants came from prestigious backgrounds. Yet, Hana performed brilliantly. Her exceptional memory and analytical thinking allowed her to answer difficult questions quickly and confidently. Her team won first place. Newspapers published her story, and television channels invited her for interviews. People across the country admired her achievements. But despite all her success, Hana never forgot where she came from. After graduation, she returned to her village. She established a small learning center for children who struggled with confidence. She welcomed students who believed they were not intelligent enough. who had been criticized, and who had stopped believing in themselves. She taught them patiently, she listened to their fears, and she reminded them of something she had once needed to hear herself. People may underestimate you. They may tell you what you cannot do, but no one else gets to decide your future. Today, people describe Hana as extraordinary. They speak about her achievements and her accomplishments, but I remember the truth. She was never extraordinary from the beginning. She was simply a young girl who finally met someone who helped her see the potential that had always existed inside her. And sometimes all it takes to change a life is one moment before you are able to believe in yourself. Thank you for listening. I hope this story left you with something meaningful to reflect on and helped you improve your English along the way. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend who loves inspiring stories or wants to practice English through storytelling. See you in the next story.